Happy Tuesday, everybody, from the Thompson Law Group World Headquarters. It is Tuesday, therefore, we're going to have another installment of the Teaching Tuesday, okay? Because it's hashtag Teaching Tuesday, and this is the Closing Ninja Classroom. All right, so today we're going to talk about another provision in the REIN contract, which is used by the real estate agents in Hampton Roads, the Real Estate Information Network contract. We're going to talk about lending, all right? And if a contract is contingent on financing. So this is going to be governed by paragraph 8A and B, basically. So the bottom line is, if you are a buyer and your contract is contingent on financing, you have to use good faith. You have to be diligent and use good faith to obtain the financing that you are telling your seller you need. Number one is you have to put forth in the contract what lender you're going to be using. So if you wanted to change lenders along the way, you can't unless you have the written consent of the seller. You have to give them notice, and the seller has to agree that you can change gears and go with another lender. Now, pretty much immediately, you have to use good faith, and so if the lender has any upfront fees for doing an appraisal or any kind of admin fee or processing fee, you have to pay that so the ball starts rolling and you're going forward with the process. If there's a contingency for a property inspection, you can tell the lender to hold off on the appraisal until 3 days after the inspection comes through. All right, so that's one thing that you can't slow up the process. So you can say, hey, lender, don't order my appraisal yet because our property inspection is on this day, and then so we'll order the appraisal 3 days after that. Now, let's talk about defaults. So if you get approved, if you're a buyer and you get approved financing, okay, and you have to come up with $10,000 at closing, okay, if you go and the day before closing, you go, buy your new jet ski for $10,000 and you do not have the cash required to close, that is constituted as a default under the contract. You have thus defaulted, and the seller can sue you for the resulting damages of your default. So not having the money for closing at the closing date is not an excuse. You are in default if you're the buyer. In addition to that, pursuant to the contract, you're already authorizing the lender to communicate with the listing agent and the selling agent in regards to the status and the progress of the loan. So don't get upset if the listing agent representing the seller contacts your loan officer, because they're allowed to do that pursuant to the contract. Let's say that you do use good faith and you're diligent and you try your best to obtain financing, and unfortunately you get notice that you have been denied financing. So you should get an actual written denial letter from your lender, okay? If you get that denial letter, you've got 3 days in which you have to communicate the denial to the seller, all right? So you have to communicate in writing, and upon the seller's request, you have to actually produce the denial letter. You have to do it within 3 days. If you do not do it within 3 days, let's say you wait 4 days, and on the 4th day you say, oh, by the way, I was denied financing. If you're the buyer, you're in breach of the contract. All right, the seller can sue you for the breach. The seller can terminate the contract or sue you for breach and whatever monetary damages the seller may have as a result of your breach. So the bottom line is the financing contingency is an out, all right, if you use it correctly. So if you're the buyer, you have to use good faith. You have to diligently communicate with your loan officer. If they're asking for tax returns and whatnot, you have to give them that. If they want pay stubs, you have to give them that. You have to give them that in a timely, reasonable manner. If you do not, you would be considered in breach of the contract because you're not using good faith and you're not being diligent in order to obtain the financing. So the contingency is a good thing. It's a good out. But there are some pitfalls, and if you do not comply with the requirements in the terms of the contract, you could fall in that pitfall and be in default. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Thanks.